Hello everyone, Sif here. First up, there is a bit of a delay on the episode 3 of the Heathen Hangout podcast. That was mostly because it was over the holiday period, and like organising a D&D game, everyone's schedules were very misaligned. We are looking to record this Sunday, so stay tuned for that. That should be up at some point next week, if not the week after at the absolute latest. In terms of my plan for this year for this YouTube channel, is to grow it, develop it, do more on it. I have a little bit more free time on my schedule, so I'm hoping to give it a go. First off, I'm hoping to do more book reviews, mostly because I'm writing another book, and I'm doing a lot of reading for that anyway, in areas that I think people will be interested in, stuff that isn't often talked about, and kind of looking at the more modern kind of academic scholarly thought on it. To that point, I have read The Troll Inside You by Ármann Jakobsson, and have, as you can see, quite a lot of thoughts on it. First off, I would say that moving forwards, I'm not going to give star reviews for books. I will probably do either a thumbs up or thumbs down and keep it that simple, because knowing my own brain and my own thought processes, I'm not going to be able to stick to kind of a standardized star system. And you might see some massive discrepancies of books that I really liked getting lower than some books that were middling, in my opinion, or whatever. So let's keep it simple. I will be reviewing books that give good information, first and foremost. That is my plan. So most of the books that you see videos on will hopefully be skewed towards those that I particularly enjoyed, or that have been previously recommended to me, so I hope to enjoy them. So on to The Troll Inside You. Just straight off the bat, I really like the way this was written. It was very kind of personable. It felt like Ármann Jakobsson was speaking to you directly as a reader and kind of guiding you through what has been done in the past and why he believes differently. Chief among those was the idea around how 18th, 19th, and 20th century scholars have been so obsessed with classification and like categorizing various kind of different creatures, which might have been useful in terms of analysing the material, but obfuscate the way in which the people of the period probably would have seen these beings. And to that point, the idea of classifying things as troll, that was an all-encompassing word that was understood most likely in the period to refer to a multitude of different beings. It was the absolute word, whereas nowadays you might find that troll is used to describe, it conjures in images of a being under the bridge, that sort of aspect of kind of monstrosity, and it's seen as separate from, say, like Draugr, or like just magic users, Saith workers, whereas in reality the word was used to encompass all of those back in the past. Which I thought was interesting because it offered a bit of a kind of reverse aspect to what my experience is with the Valkyries. And yes, I'm mentioning them here because they are mentioned in the book, in that I feel like the reverse has happened in that Discia and Valkyrie and Nornia were to varying degrees seen as very separate beings, and during the course of the period, kind of the semantic weakening happened, and nowadays we're looking to try and demarcate them a little bit more to try and see where cloudiness happened with the words. It's probably the best way my brain can put it right now, hilariously. Whereas troll has done the opposite. It was an all-encompassing word, at least at one point in the history, and has now been used to kind of has been weakened a little bit to refer to a very specific creature in academia and obviously in folklore, which is where the troll kind of further developed, but as heathens we're not so much interested in that. So I also liked how Jakobsson distinguished and made that very clear from the outset, very early on. I think it was in the first couple of chapters, that was the case, and he was going to basically bring it back to the ground roots of what might have been the case in the period. And he does a very good job of justifying that perspective. I also really enjoyed, again, the personability of the prose and just the way of being like, it didn't read like an academic book normally reads, as in it's not dry. It is full of character, and I really quite enjoyed that. That's very different to what you might be expecting. What I'll also say is the price point. For an academic book, it was relatively cheap, which is always a good thing, and I think I will be moving forwards with that sort of analysis as well. I think it was about £18, so I'll put the conversion into the various currencies that you might be more familiar with. It's not unusual to see 100 plus in terms of academic books, even for ones of relatively short page count, or low page count, I should say. But let's talk more about the content itself. I think if you're looking for a really good overview of the troll in the early medieval period and kind of conversion, post-conversion, this is a really good place to start. Again, it's very good in terms of demarcating where his justifications lie. It's really good at giving you some really good examples of, obviously, trolls appearing in the literature. I think that probably would be my only negative, in that because it feels like a good primer and summary, it's not exhaustive on the examples, but that honestly is a minor point. I would say the only other negative is potentially some of the translations. The word choices are interesting. Mileage may vary on that. I'm just going to find an example. For instance, translating Seither to shamanism, which is a point that is brought up actually early in the book as well, in that it might not be the best word choice, but is the word that Jakobsson uses moving forwards. There's also a point of, let me just try and find this. That's the end notes. That's way too far. I'll try and take a picture of it so you can clearly see my reasoning here. The kind of the Geeth Unum is translated to goddesses, whereas probably would translate it to priestess or priestesses. So yeah, I mean, but that's such a minor point, and obviously it's relative to whatever your opinion is on the Old Norse, and obviously it doesn't dilute the conversation that's happening within this book. I also really liked how it tackles the aspect of other, which obviously is so important to the idea of trolls, full stop. It's a really good analysis of the sort of parallels that were being done in the literature between Christianity and paganism, which is, it's not inferred, it's quite explicit. In, paganism was seen as the old, bad, the ancient, and magic was seen as being basically pagan and trollish and belongs in the past. And there's a lot of really good breakdown of the words that are used to describe various aspects of troll magic and being trollish, and how they are innately describing something old and ancient and of the past and outdated, and all words to that effect. I thought that was a really fantastic inclusion that, really enriched the sort of discussion that was happening. And yeah, and honestly, if you're looking for just more information in this vein of the aspect of othering and the dangers of the wild and how that manifested in the literature, especially in Iceland, which was this landscape of unknown potential, and how the troll is the kind of aspect of self and the dangers of all of that. It really was a great read, and so far I think you couldn't do much better than this unless you were looking at specific examples. But again, it is quite broad, so if you want specific examples, I would say look for another book, but this I can only wholeheartedly recommend because of how it takes a broad view at the topic and basically gives you all you could want to know about it, outside of really, really digging into the topic at hand. I think for Heathens, it's good in terms of kind of looking at the multifaceted ways of the gods manifest. Odin is given quite a lot of discussion within this book, and he's described, and I really quite like this, as the troll of trolls. And I think that's quite good for getting a good handle on his role in the literature and in the lore, in that he likes subverting boundaries and he breaks those boundaries willingly, and he's given permission almost to do that because of his status as a god. And you have characters like Njal of Njal Saga who kind of fulfill those aspects of other, but are given permission to have those aspects because of their societal status. So it's this kind of real nuanced take on what was considered other, and it really was tied to status in the society and the culture. But yeah, wholeheartedly recommend. If anyone wants a more in-depth review, I'd be absolutely happy to give that. For now, I'm going to keep them relatively short. But yeah, very good. I've made a lot of notes in terms of aspects that I really quite enjoyed. I don't really have much of a key in mind. It's by vibes, mostly. Read, although this is something I need to read more on. Let me just give an example of a red tab. Oh yeah, those are things that I just referred to in like the older Gula thing laws, which I'm also doing research on the specifics of aspects of othering and things that I mentioned in this that do an inference of them being applicable to the time. For instance, worshipping heathen gods. That's mentioned as being, I think, a lesser outlawry. I can't remember off the top of my head, but so at the time of this writing, heathen gods are still being worshipped by inference. I like the idea of having all my books in easy reach, which brings me on to my next point. I may be doing a bookshelf tour if there's an interest in that. And if anyone wants a specific review on a specific book, just give me a shout and I'll do that. But it is chaos. I need to tidy it before I do that review. But yeah, that's basically everything on my side for now. Yes. More videos are incoming. Podcast is being recorded this weekend. So yeah, just keep an eye out. I'll be promoting it as and when. 2025. Should be great.